Hey, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Ambush on Air. I'm your host, Sam Bush, and I am thrilled to bring you something super exciting today and someone who I've known, I think, 6 years, 7 years.
It's been a minute. Yeah.
Yeah. So for those of you just tuning in, this is Ambush on Air, where we talk about disrupting the marketing norms and thinking outside of the box and ambushing your strategy, if you will. So in that spirit, I brought on my good friend Kara Brown from Lead to kind of do a fun little session today all around revenue demand and revenue models for your business. So Kara, let's get a quick intro about you.
I love it. It's so good to see you. It has been a minute since we've
I
seen each
know.
other.
I know.
I'm Kara Smith Brown. I am the CEO of Lead. We are really the largest go-to-market consultancy in supply chain.
Yes.
I say that as if there are other go-to-market consultancies. So like there really are. Like, let's
Typically
be
in
honest.
supply chain. No.
Basically, like we're it.
Yeah.
And we are hyper specific to our niche. So riches are in the niches, right? And we serve trucks, planes, boats, the tech around trucks, planes, and boats, and the money around trucks, planes, and boats.
I love it.
But what we've discovered in the framework that we put in this book we're going to talk about is
Yeah.
really usable for any B2B environment. So while our examples and our case studies are all very specific to heavy industrial and kind of the unsexy stuff, they can be used for any industry.
Oh yeah, and that's actually how Kara and I met. We worked together when I was at a logistics company in a TMS solution a couple of years ago. And as soon as we met and started talking, we were talking the same language, talking the same kind of jive. So it was a super easy conversation for me to bring you guys on board and help us build out that journey.
Can I
there.
tell everyone that I've tried to hire you like 3 times too?
You can't tell them
okay?
that, yeah.
You're on that campaign, Sam. One day.
One day. I'm telling you. I was just in Atlanta. I could have just, popped in.
Yeah,
I know. I feel like I'm running
get you back in trucks, planes, and boats again. It's okay. I know you're happy where you are. So
I'm very happy where I am. I now am in the nonprofit, government, and public sector. So very, very different than logistics. But like you said, the principles in the book that we're about to talk about apply to me and they apply to every other B2B that we really talk about. And as you guys know, as listeners, this is all for B2B. We're B2B marketers in this space. If you're B2C, try it out, but I can't tell you it's going to work because I don't know. So don't
We have no idea.
No idea.
I don't know.
I've literally never done B2C. So.
Me neither. And someone told me a long time ago, and I won't mention his name because it would be rude of me to say that. He was speaking at a thing and he was like, B2B and B2C are exactly the same. And I was like, full stop.
I've heard it too.
I disagree at so many levels, but he was on stage, so I let him keep talking.
Yeah, you didn't stand up and throw hands.
I shut up.
Literally ambush him.
Now, actually, I might be like, hey, so I wrote this book, but that was a long time ago.
Send him a copy to highlight this.
I should actually. Like, by the way, you're part of the reason I wrote this book is to prove you.
Yes. Okay. So we keep talking about a book. So the coolest thing ever, Kara is writing a book called The Revenue Engine. So this book is a practical framework for B2B marketers to generate pipeline. So
that's exactly it. It is. I have a little baby copy of it here on my desk. This is like the one that Forbes sent me. It's not actually a book. It's just like the front cover, but I'm so excited. Eventually I will actually have copies in hand. We'll see if that ever actually happens. It feels like it's been a lifetime. So the book is called The Revenue Engine. It is very specifically a framework for B2B demand gen. We are not pretty marketers. So we don't talk about creative. We don't talk about content too much. We have very specific ways that we approach the content sort of engine, but it's a 9-step framework. So think 3 by 3. The first is share good news, track interest, follow up. The second is the funnels, which we think of as the prospect funnel, the nurture funnel, and the customer funnel. So we kind of split that sort of one funnel that we've all seen our whole lives, right? Split it into 3. And then measurement is super important to us. So we measure volume, velocity, and value inside of those, inside of that funnel. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. My favorite thing is to talk about the volume versus closed one. So I think you and I have talked about this in the past, the whole difference between lead gen and demand gen. How do you see that looking? What do you think about that? Do you still think people are lead geners at this point?
It's really interesting. So I have I kind of don't care about the answer to that question, right? Like,
Love it.
I'm happy to have like an esoteric conversation with a smart person like you about it if you want to, but like at the end of the day,
Yep.
it's all about revenue. So
Exactly.
whether we're talking about lead gen or demand gen, the other thing that gets me a lot, specifically in supply chain, and this is probably true in most of your listeners' B2B environments,
Yeah.
is the word lead is a leading word, right?
Oh yeah.
So funny. But still, like
Lead
the
the lead
word lead, and you experience this in your more than once in your career, someone expects there to be money behind it.
every time.
And there is no money behind it. It is a
Yeah.
record. It's just
Yes.
it's not even a
Contact.
human. It's the
Exactly.
representation of a human
Yep.
inside of your CRM.
Yep.
So we stopped using the word lead.
I love it.
Even though the name of my company is LeadCoverage, which is really unfortunate, but it is what it is. Like, can't change it now.
A while ago.
A long time ago. Like, right, can't change it now.
Yep.
But it's not in the like. It's called the book is called The Revenue Engine. We don't talk about Gen because at
Love
the end
it.
of the day, we talk about records, and we talk a lot in the first third of the book about a note on leads, which is we don't use the word lead, we use the word record. And if you can get your leadership team to start understanding that they're not leads, they're just records. They're just email addresses that aren't even necessarily tied to a human being yet.
Oh yeah.
Start to understand, okay, volume of records is very different than volume of leads. Because
100%.
the expectation put on a record is basically zero.
Nothing.
And an expectation put on a lead has some material value. And so we really disconnect these two things. And then what we did, Sam, is we split them into two different funnels.
Okay.
So the prospect funnel is full of records, and they have no material value. And you try a bunch of stuff, and this is where it gets dirty.
BDR,
all that fun stuff, like all that jazz, like happens here against strangers, but they don't become leads until you put them into the nurture funnel.
Yeah.
And so we kind of split it apart for our very sophisticated clients that really needed us to like clearly define stranger, not a stranger.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's something I've ran into issues my entire career with is walking into an executive meeting or a board meeting and saying, I'm not going to talk about the leads. And they're like, why? We have so many. And I'm like, yeah, but we didn't close any of those. So why do you care? Why do you care about impressions and leads if at the end of the day, we're trying to drive revenue for the business?
Right.
Don't you want me talking about SQOs and beyond? Or even the ones that are, like you said, not strangers that are moving through the funnel.
Becoming aware of you as a business.
Exactly.
Someone who even that it represents, and we talk a lot about representation too now.
Okay.
Like this human being represents an account who could be a company, right? We don't really know. Like most of the time, we don't really know if this email address or this record is actually a human. Like sometimes they're not humans, sometimes they're bots, sometimes, and then they move, right? They shift, they go to different places. And then all of a sudden this account that you thought had moved through the funnel isn't there anymore because Sally went to a different company and all the like. So
all you had was that one record that you moved.
Right.
So when really you didn't have your buying committee involved, you just had the one person.
Yeah, one record.
Yeah.
And so we really talk about this a lot. We talk a lot about the buying committee, and I think I have like 5 or 6 different like versions of. So Gartner has 2 or 3 different versions. Latin Conan has a version. Sanger Vajra has I think I have every version in the book where I'm just like, at the end of the book, I'm like, I know that I've said this 10 different times.
Yeah.
The buying committee is just a lot of people.
It's just a lot of people.
Whether it's 10 or 20, like it doesn't really matter what the number is. It's a lot of people. So using one record and saying this one record is representing this whole enterprise company moving through my funnel, like let's just be realistic. Like let's be realistic about it.
Yes. Like I serve mid-market, some enterprise, but mainly mid-market now, enterprise in the past. And I did a whole bunch of research for some speaking sessions that I do around the Microsoft space. And one of the things that I found out that I really don't think people can grab yet is in mid-market B2B software purchases. Before COVID, it was like 2 people needed to be involved. The person who used it every day as the manager, and then the person who signed the deal, which was the executive. Now it is at least 10. It is at least 10 people in a mid-market deal. So imagine the size in an enterprise deal.
Insane.
Right?
And these people, I mean, and you came from this space, like you were with me in this, like, Walmart
Yeah.
shipping decisions are made by an entire department
Committee.
at Walmart, right? A giant committee of people.
Yeah.
And so we spend a lot of time talking with our customers, about like, hey, let's really understand what's a record, what's a lead, what's an account, right? And then really like, what is our ideal customer profile, which 9 times out of 10 is like way too broad for what it can be marketed to in any meaningful way. We spend a lot of time talking about, okay, ideal customer profile first. Let's get some records in here and test and see if this works, and then see what happens. So that velocity goes so much faster if you were really, really clear about your ideal customer profile.
Exactly. No, I love it. Like I said, you and I see eye to eye more than most people.
I know, it's like, I feel like I'm not teaching you anything because you know 100% of what I'm talking about. You could have written this book, by the way. Like,
oh my God. Well, I just might be working on one of them.
I love this. I love that.
All about marketing to generations, because that's my favorite topic.
I love it. Well, I just finished The Anxious Generation, which materially changed the way I parent.
Yeah, I've heard very good.
So good. The first third of the book is all math, which you'll really appreciate. Really thinking about how we market to Gen Z, because even though they are not our buyers today, they'll be our buyers in 10 years. And
they're in your buying committee doing the
research. They are in the committee. They are in the committee. They're doing the research. But more importantly, my employees.
Oh, 100%.
And how do I get my employees who are Gen Z to talk to my clients who are boomers? It's like, whew, we are like,
oh my gosh,
we're working on it, girl. We are working on it. So I want to read this
book. I'm in the same boat. I have a couple of Gen Zs on my team as well, and I'm constantly like, what could I be doing differently with them? Like, I'm not that old, but I feel it sometimes because I'm like,
have they called you a boomer yet? They've called me a boomer before. That's really good. Yeah, they're like, okay, boomer.
I'll never forget my very first big meeting. I was at an agency years and years ago, and I walk into a meeting and I'm the social media manager and content strategist for an agency. I have Doc Martens on and black jeans, a black hoodie, the hood is up, and I have red lipstick on. That's my whole MO, my whole 20s. If anybody knows me, that's
I believe this.
Right? I walk in and it is a room of people in all suits. Mainly men, but all suits. And I have to get up and talk about why we are getting on Twitter at the time.
And they're like, what?
What is Twitter? And in that moment, I was like, oh, you've got to learn how to talk to every different generation, not just in the way you market, but the way you market yourself and the way you talk about your marketing, right?
Although I think there are a couple things, regardless of generation. I'm not sure if this is book or not, that are always true. And one of them is 100%. Third-party validation.
100%.
So whether
we all want it, we all need it.
Yes. You're going to do it on TikTok, or you're going to do it in LinkedIn, which is where I'm an influencer, hair flip. Third-party validation is so important. So me getting on this podcast, you validating me, super, super important, right? Like the partnership ecosystem and supply chain and most industries is like really, really strong. And so I think whether you're sharing the good news about your partnerships on social media, so in the writing of the book, I now have to do video content, which I cannot tell you how uncomfortable that makes me. But I have been told that I have to do this. And so this idea that I have to be sharing this third party on this video feed versus in an email, which is the way my boomers like to receive, right? So either way, it's sharing third party validation, thought leadership content, and then the distribution channel, I think, is really important.
Totally. Couldn't agree more. You said one thing that is in the first set of the framework, which is share good news. So talk a little bit about that. I know in my life, I have fought tooth and nail to post more than just the product releases as good news. But how do you identify a couple of things that would work as good news for really any B2B?
So I'll give you, because you are more sophisticated, I'm assuming that your listeners are also a little more sophisticated. So I'll give you kind of the good stuff. We're going to go beyond like social media posting. One is commercial PR. And what I mean by commercial PR is PR that's going to move the needle. Your product, nobody cares about your product. Like, Nobody.
Your users maybe, but probably not
Yeah,
because they're in the
like
middle
they're
of
not going to
using
read
it.
a press release. You should send them in an email, and you should probably live in the software, to be honest. But
Couldn't agree
but
more.
commercial PR is really like good news that involves a customer. It's good news
Mhm.
that involves something macroeconomic. Like I'm in
Yeah.
supply chain, and so the IWLA just had a strike. The strike is now
Mhm.
over. That's
Yeah,
good news. I mean, it was
exactly.
not necessarily good news when they went on strike, but now it's good news.
The
The key
pivot.
bridge collapse, even though it wasn't
Oh
like
my
good
gosh.
news, is still news, right?
Yeah.
Do you have a position on this? So
Yeah.
positioning yourself as a thought leader and using commercial PR is one. The other one that I think
Great.
a lot of B2B folks get wrong is analyst relations, right?
Oh my gosh.
For us in supply chain, it's all about Gartner, right? And I get
Yeah.
so many eye rolls from clients and professionals who have been in the space. It's only pay to play, it doesn't work, all the stuff.
Yeah.
We have a true framework and we can prove that really great work with analyst relations done well can drive revenue, but it has to be like paid attention to. You can't brief Gartner once
Yeah.
a year and expect it to work
Exactly.
for you. Like that's not the way it works. So we spend a lot of time sort of in the book and as an
Yeah.
agency really helping clients understand the value of AR. And you will appreciate this because you come from supply chain. Gartner
Yeah.
approved our chapter on AR in the book.
Oh, heck
And we
yeah.
have a case of 2 case studies in the book on how one of our clients went from just like a traditional freight broker to the modern 4PL and how we used an
Um,
analyst relations report to drive $100 million in pipeline. So
wow.
it's
So
real,
that's
like
what
you
I'm
really
talking
can
about.
do it. Yeah.
Yes, you can. You can. Okay, so another nerd research thing. Last year, this is a report from last year, so I got to check it in. But as of last year, less than 20% of millennials use analyst reports and rankings in their buying cycle.
Interesting.
Isn't that interesting? I do. I like go to it first. Like the company I'm at now, Syllogist, as soon as I came on, I was like, what do we do with Gartner? I don't see us in a quadrant. I don't see us in any. Fun fact, we just met with him right before this. But
I
I'm
love
like,
it.
is there a reason that millennials maybe differ from that normal path of analyst
I don't know.
reporting and
Really,
stuff?
when you figure this out, I'd love to get your
Yeah, we'll
insights
have
on
to
it, like
talk about it again.
what you understand. Here's the reason that we know it works. I mean,
Yeah,
number one, we have these incredible case studies, but we sat down with
bigger buyer committee than just a group of millennials.
agreed. All, and because we are selling, I mean, our clients are selling
Yeah.
enterprise shipping solutions, right? So we're selling to like the Nordstroms and the Walmarts of the world. But one of my clients, they will remain nameless because it's inappropriate for me to share if they haven't said yes. She sat down and she said to me, my clients don't get out of bed without checking Gartner. So I
Wow.
think as you go up market, it may not
I
be as
agree.
much in mid market. As you go up market, like
Yeah.
these ginormous enterprises are not making big buying decisions without checking the third party
No,
analyst.
because the size of a deal that they do is more money than some businesses make in a year just for that one deal. Like we sell ERPs and CRMs. So our deal size is pretty big, but overall, like I can tell you our buyer is a middle-aged woman because we're nonprofits, you
Right.
know.
And I
And it's
think
just it's all different and it's all these stats that you find on certain people groups don't apply across the board. And I think that's what I'm really trying to
I
say.
oftentimes remind my team a lot. We do sort of a story brand, if you will.
Yeah,
Donald Miller wrote the book on like put
you know it.
yourself in your customer's shoes,
Yep.
right? So you work for, I don't know, Nestle, just off the top of my head. You're the person who's responsible for putting the TMS decision-making matrix in front of the chief supply chain officer, right?
Of a
What
global
of a
scale
global scalable business.
enterprise.
Like, and so you're gonna like, what are you gonna hand
Yeah.
this person to help him make the right decision, right?
Oh yeah.
Number one, no one gets fired for hiring IBM. So the first one on your list is gonna be the top right of the magic
Exactly.
quadrant because that makes the most sense. And then you're gonna pick the 2 or 3 that you think are cool contenders. And you're going to
Exactly.
hand this list to the chief supply chain officer, and he probably knows the people that run these businesses. Like
100%.
this is not like a, oh, I didn't know TMS existed. Like, come on. So this whole idea of like educate the market and especially at enterprise makes no
Yeah.
sense. And
Yeah.
we spend a
You've
lot
got
of
your top
time.
players.
Yeah, and you spend a lot of time like marketing to the wrong person. A lot of my
Yeah.
clients say decision maker, decision maker, decision maker, and our feedback is no, you need the guy doing the report. Like you need
Yeah.
the person, like
doer.
the tiger team who's finding all the information. Because this guy is not going to wake up one morning and be like, oh, we need to do TMS. I'm going to go Google TMS for Nestle. Like, that's not happening.
No, it's the person with the pain who you need to get to. And I think that's
you're
such
right.
a missed, like, I mean, there's a variety of people you need to get to, right? In the buying cycle. But what I have seen most beneficial is that record that you're talking about. Reach out to the record with the pain because they're the one using the solution. They're the one dealing with the problem, right? And they're an influence in your buying cycle. They might not be the signer, but they're the beginning of getting that problem up to the top.
And
right?
I think that's what I think we have to remind our clients a lot of, like, this is the beginning. They're learning about you. It's not this CHRO or the C-suite who's going to be learning about you. It's his minions are going to learn about you.
Exactly.
And I think one of the things that we don't spend enough time thinking about is just like, what do they already know about you?
Yeah.
Like, what's already out there, right?
Yeah.
And that is
don't be redundant. Yeah.
Right. It's all intent data. Are you doing a ton with intent data and like all the cool ABM stuff today?
I am getting into it here at Sylogist. We didn't have a pretty like strong model of it yet. I did a ton of it when I was in my last role and roles prior. But it is on my biggest list for next year. We're starting some light ABM right now on a couple things, just to get my team used to it, because that's not the model that they are familiar with. So we're testing right now.
I love it.
But I think intent is the only way to be doing marketing these days. And I even have kind of a back and forth conversation with some people on, does intent just belong in marketing, or does it just belong in sales, or is it both? Right.
Yeah. Well, I think my perspective on it has to belong in both. But can I tell you what I think? Because you know what intent is. I don't have to tell you about it. I was on a podcast earlier. I had to explain it. Can I tell you what I think is even sexier?
Yeah.
Single stream intent.
Ooh, okay.
Right. Okay. So follow me. Okay. So there is a very sexy company in Chicago called carriersource.io. Listeners, stay with me. I promise it's okay. It's the Yelp of truckers, right?
Ooh,
so it's the Yelp of trucking companies. So you would be amazed at the Fortune 100 companies that are coming to carriersource.io to get a truck. So if Procter & Gamble is going to carriersource.io to get a truck in, I don't know, Memphis, something has gone wrong, right?
100%.
Like, that is not the way that business happens. Like, if you didn't know about anything about
that's a desperation moment.
That's not right.
Yeah, something is messed up.
And if something's messed up, there is pain. And if there is pain, then we should be solving it, right? So Rob Light, CEO of CarrierSource.io, is now selling single stream intent data.
From his platform.
Right? So in my space, this makes sense for trucks. It makes sense for tech. It makes sense for warehouse. It makes sense for pallets. It makes sense for like anything that you could have, like a marketplace, which was super hot, 10 years ago. Any marketplace could and should be selling single stream intent data.
So smart.
I know, right? So I'm pretty excited about this. There's no mechanism to host this data yet, right? Like, I'm not that girl. So if you're listening to this podcast and you want to build a single stream intent, like reach out, like, let me give you all my nerdy info. I'm not going to build it. But this idea that, hey, we're going to have these intent sort of tools like, Sixth Sense, Demandbase, and Rollworks, et cetera. How do you then take this single stream of intent and put it into the rest of the intent queue?
Yeah. Ooh.
I know. I'm super excited about
that's something. Oh, yeah. Anybody that works at any of those platforms, please listen. Please think about it.
Right?
And Propensity, the one that we work with right now, listen in, because I'm going to be
Sumner. I should totally call Sumner. I should tell him that we should do this single stream intent. It's really wild. And I think what Rob Light at Carrier is trying to figure out is like, how do you commercialize this?
Exactly.
Because if there's no vessel for the single stream intent to come to, right now it's kind of scotch tapey. God, all the best ideas start that way.
They always do. They always do.
And like,
they start out a napkin with random thoughts for drinks, and then 5 years later, it's a whole business.
Yeah, here I am, like considering myself like the next Mark Zuckerberg. Like, look at me talking about this. Like,
single source intent is the next.
What I really should do is go buy every single domain name, single source intent. That's what I really. That's what I should do this podcast.
At least the .com, okay?
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. See, this is what I'm talking about. This is great chat. I mean, a great chat.
You're smarter than my average, like, supply chain like user of our services. And listen, there's no fault with these guys. Like a lot of times are like 0 to 1, and they've been doing email marketing, and they've got a sequencing tool, and they're doing all the right things.
Yeah.
But the big guys, even in supply chain, like the big guys are actually like already using this stuff. They can get advanced kind of like notice of what's happening in terms of like RFPs. You can kind of see the shifts in the marketplace. We can see it around robots.
Yeah.
And so like very specific types of robots. It's super cool.
Logistics, so cool.
I know, right? One day I'm gonna get you back, Sam.
I know. One day it's on my list. I love it. Well, okay. So any other cool insights or things you want to note about the book before we kind of cap out today?
I'm so proud of it. It's taken 2 years to get it out.
Yeah.
Like I talked about, Gartner has approved a chapter. We've got a chapter on ABM. We've got a chapter on intent, like this chapter on like real commercial PR. It is not I don't know, it's not fluffy. Like there's a lot of like really good meat in this book.
I can't wait to read it.
Thank you.
I read the beginning, but I need it all.
I know, you got to read like the first chapter.
Yeah.
There are also 3 funny stories, so it's not super boring. There's a story about using stripper names, which is hilarious. There's a story about how I trapped my husband into marrying me. And I equate it to dating in my 20s in Chicago, which is like a sales funnel, obviously.
Okay, can't wait to read that. Need to learn from it.
And then the last one is, The last one is how I got fired from being Girl Scout cookie mom because I wanted to increase the volume of the cookies that we were going to sell by using emails. You're going to love this story. It's amazing. They basically told us like, hey, Girl Scouts, we're going to sell cookies online. And if your daughter sends 30 emails, she can get a badge. And I was like, wait, what if she sends 30,000 emails?
Exactly.
And they're like, does your daughter know 30,000 people? I was like, no, but I send emails for a living, and like I can for sure pull you a list out of sales and like we can do that. They did not love that I was like to use the they're like, that's not really the spirit of Girl Scouts. So anyway, it's a super fun book. Like it is a B2B business book, and I'm really proud of it and super excited for everyone to read it. But it is kind of fun. There's like nuggets in there that are really kind of interesting. Yeah.
Will you have an audiobook?
I will, and I narrated it myself.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
And it was one of the top 10 hardest things I've ever done.
I could imagine.
So when you are ready to record your own audiobook, I'll
call you
and I will give you all of the tips. Like way worse than I thought it was going to be. And I've done hard things. Like I've done an Ironman. I've been on stage before. It was a different sort of pressure and stress. So we're very happy to get that done, actually.
Yeah. Oh, I bet. Yeah, I will be listening to it on audio for sure. That's my preferred method as I rolled out this podcast. I'm like, now I'm going to listen to everything instead of reading.
Yeah, it'll be on Audible November 19th. And I think that something about Forbes, and they tell me like the Audible is the same as buying a book, so it doesn't really matter. The real key for when you go to write your own book, Sam, is reviews. So like expect an email from me on November 19th. Like, please say nice things.
5-star, best book ever. Period.
Best book I've ever read. Right. I'll Venmo you on the other side, I promise.
Perfect. Sounds good. Next time in Atlanta, you could just buy me a cocktail.
I will definitely an actual dinner for sure.
Yeah. Okay, I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining today. I really appreciate it. This has been one of the most smooth ones that I've done, because it's just like talking to myself,
Well, it's like we're like old friends too. Like what better way to hang out with an old friend is talk about nerdy stuff you both like.
100%, couldn't agree more. Well, thanks for joining, and thanks for listening to everybody on Ambush on Air. And as always, I will sign you off with party on. Have a good weekend.